Hi there, everyone. So glad that you are here. Let me just get this last little knot unraveled. Welcome back to day two of Raising Your Vibration. For those of you that are watching this and do not know me, my name is Akasha Searcy, and I am a fifth dimensional leader and someone who really harnesses the power of the many gifts and powers, I should say, of nutrition, of yoga, of meditation, of mindfulness, of beautiful gifts from all different types of cultures, and really bringing those together to help you live your absolute best life. And in ways that I wanted to help people do this, I came up with this idea of just a 5-day process of how we can talk about raising our vibration. And if you watch the first video that I offered before this class series started, it was talking about how energy works. And I had a little graph, which I think I'll probably be showing like every time we meet, but really talking about how in life there's always an up and a down, or a high and a low, or a negative and a positive. And in that video, I talk about how it's your subconscious and your conscious minds. And yesterday, I spoke a lot about that with mindset. And I had put a link under the video for day one about a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So hopefully, you'll be able to check those out if you haven't already. And today, I really want us to dive into the idea of dream weaving. And this is really my language for it, dream weaving. The very traditional old school language for this is visualization. And I want to talk about how this raises your vibration, because yesterday in the first day, I really talked about how your mindset is everything. And when you understand how your mind works, what its programs are, that it kind of auto populates, then what starts to happen is you can really see how your mind might not be working for you. And you can also begin to learn, are your emotions driving your thoughts? Or are your thoughts driving your emotions? And as you bring those things into balance with the physical portal of the body, what starts to happen is you light up your light, you illuminate yourself. And this is really when we're bringing those three things of mental body, emotional body, and physical body into synergy or into alignment. What's really going on is you are self initiating, and you are in this continual process, I believe, every day of awakening. And every breath is truly a moment of awakening, right? If we want to get really philosophical about it, every inhale is a new birth, every exhale is a new death. And that's to put a really fine, like tangible thought process on this idea of, okay, well, what do I do about everything that's happening in between the inhales and the exhales? And if we can really start to bring the mind, the emotions, and the physical body into congruency, what's going to happen is you are going to have this paradigm shift, or as some of my friends say, an epiphany or a download, right? And as those things start happening, you will actually start changing the way you approach your life. You'll start changing the way you approach problems that arise in your life, because you will have moved from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And the thing about a growth mindset is that it really can harness the power of imagination. And that's why today, on day two of How to Raise Your Vibration, we're talking about dream weaving. And so, as I mentioned, dream weaving is what I like to call it, and I'll explain that a little bit more. I am a huge fan of Don Miguel Ruiz and family. And Don Miguel Ruiz wrote many beautiful books, but he also wrote the first book that really went huge here in the US as well as the rest of the world was is The Four Agreements. And if you haven't read that book, it's really something that I recommend. If you have read that book, I highly suggest that you check out The Voice of Knowledge, because it'll go back to reminding you that you are the weaver of the dream. And that's why I like to use this language of dream weaving, because if you wake up today and you don't like your reality, you can change it. Now, the thing is, that sounds really trite, right? It sounds like, "Oh, well, I don't like it, so I'm just gonna change it." But it's easier said than done because of the subconscious programs that are running in our mind. And this is where visualization, or dream weaving, as I like to call it, is probably one of my personal favorites. And I wanna say that the reason that it's really my personal favorite is that you are visualizing the reality that you want to live in, down to what it feels like to live in that reality. And I think that this is a really important part that people forget about. They sit and they close their eyes maybe and they do their visualization, or they speak it forth. I'm a big fan of verbal manifestation. I am a verbal manifester in my reality, so I know that that's a tool that works for me. So sometimes I speak out loud my visualization. Some people like to write it. Some people like to do vision boards. I like to do all of those things. I think the more you can really work with your ability to manifest in all layers involving all senses, which is something that we're going to talk about, then the more you magnetize, which makes you attractive to what it is you desire. This is about that unified field again, which we talked a little bit about yesterday, right? Where you're magnetizing your field to that which you desire. And as you do that, things start to naturally come to you, things start to flow. And so, dream weaving, daydreaming, visualizing, however, some people call it spirit weaving, whatever language you would like to call it. In essence, what we're doing is using the mental body, the emotional body, to weave together the sensorial body, which is the human physical experience. So we're bringing all three of those things together to become a portal for that which it is we desire. So as we light up ourself, we charge our particles, we illuminate that attractor field, then naturally the law of correspondence, right? It's going to come to you and allow life to flow through you. And the next thing you know, you're going to create that which you desire. So the thing about visualization is it is a great opportunity for you to start trusting your intuition, for you to start listening to, as my mentor Rebecca Campbell says, the little niggle of your soul, right? Niggle. It's such a British word and I always love it. It's like this little tickle that you keep getting, and it consistently happens over and over and over. For me, it's like I'll get a thought and it seems completely random. And in the past, I would just be like, "Oh, those are just random thoughts." But what I have realized is that's my intuition grabbing my attention. And so what I have done in my journey of using visualization as a tool is I spend about 5 minutes multiple times throughout the day thinking about what it is I'm seeking. So right now I'm looking for a little home for me and my little doggy. And so I visualize not only what it looks like on the outside, down to the acreage of the property that I would like, how many bedrooms I want, what I want the bathrooms to look like, what the finishes are on the cabinetry, the colors of the wall, the colors of the floor. I mean, I could keep going. So every day I'm thinking about this, and I've been doing this now for quite a while. And I've noticed that as I start looking for things for rent or for sale in my area, a lot of the houses are starting to have a lot of these things that I want. And this is showing me that my visualization is working. It's not that, oh, it's not happening fast enough or it's not happening in the right way. My responsibility is to simply use my focus as a superpower. Remember, we talked about that yesterday, right? Use my focus as a superpower. Listen to the information and continue to visualize, continue to emit through this transistor that is this awesome brain that we have, what it is I desire out into the world, out into the unified field. So now we're talking about the entire field of all that is. So we're getting into these wonderful universal laws, which I absolutely love because as above, so below. as below, so above, right? So if we are dream weaving in our mind and we are magnetizing that with the emotions of that which feels joyful, of that which feels abundant, of that which feels enriching, of that which brings us happiness, then what starts to happen is we become this magnet for everything that emits those frequencies. And I want to give you in doing your visualization, I want to give you some action steps. So yesterday we really talked about the celebration list, writing out 10 things that are going right for you today, right now, right? So I'm doing this journey along with you. I wrote mine out yesterday. I'll do it again today. Every day that we're doing this, I'm a big fan of the celebration list because it keeps you focused on the positive, right? You keep firing those neurons toward the positive. And remember, neurons that fire together wire together. So you're creating this very resilient neural pathway process in the mind. And that's one of the beauties of dream weaving or visualization. So, if you're a note taker, you may want to take some notes here. I've got a little list of some steps that you can take that will really help you truly understand visualization because I think a lot of people do not understand visualization. One part of that because we don't have tons of conversation about it, but Olympic athletes, NBA pros, football, like, oh my gosh, so many athletes have been doing visualization for over 2 decades as part of their routine, their daily routine. And if you just Google visualization, you will blow your mind at what you find when it comes to all kinds of superstars and how they have visualized themselves in their current reality, and now they're living that. So I want to give you tangible tools in case you're a person who, excuse me, has a hard time sitting still. And there's lots of different ways that you can do visualization. I'll be popping up this little chart here, which talks about creative visualization right under here, the link for that. But one of the ways that you can do that is write it out in detail. If you're a writer, if you're someone who journals, just write it out in detail. Get in your journal and just write out what it looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like, what things might feel like when you touch them. Maybe if you're having a meal because you're visualizing a vacation, or maybe you're visualizing a date, or maybe you're visualizing the perfect little pet that you want to adopt, whatever it may be. Whatever that thing is that you want to visualize, get all five senses involved. This is part one. You really want to get all five senses involved because the more you can get the sensorial experience, the more sectors of the brain you are lighting up. And this is really potent when it comes to creation. The other thing, besides just writing out things, getting those five senses activated, is that you really want to take action every day toward your goals, right? So, a lot of times people will think, oh, I'm just going to sit and imagine that I have $1 million. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just sit and imagine, using your visualization that you have $1 million. But imagine how much more potent that would be if you were to sit and write out what happens in your life when you have $1 million. All the people you can help, all the places you travel, all the things you try, all the things you do, all the exciting adventures that you have, how you share it with your friends, how you might share it with your families, right? And then you imagine that and all the feelings that go along with that. And this is basically like taking your visualization and then adding special sauce to it. That's really how I like to think about it when you get those five senses involved in this process. So you're going to write it out in as much detail as possible and then engaging those five senses. These are two really potent aspects. You could just write it out, but when you layer in the sensorial experience, it's like superpower. The next thing you're going to do is imagine the emotion to the outcome. So let's go back to this. If you want $1 million, right? then imagine what happens, as I was saying, how it feels when you have that. Give yourself that gift of how that feels right now. This is something that Tony Robbins is really big into. If you can really let yourself be washed in the feeling of living as though you already have what it is you desire, you will be living a life of magic because, and so it is, and you trust that it is already done. And you're reaping the rewards of that right now as you give yourself permission to feel those feelings, because those are the things that weave out into the unified field to attract it back to you. So the feeling thing is really important. The third thing I really want you to think about doing is taking that action step every day toward your desired outcome. And I feel like I have a pretty good example for you with this. So I always thought somewhere in my life that I would publish a poetry book. I've written poetry since I was a little kid. It's something that I feel like in my life really saved me because as someone who grew up in a complicated home life, it gave me like this landing place with emotional language that I didn't have. And it made me realize that I wasn't alone in how I was perceiving the world, even at a very early age. And so I've written since about 8 years old, and I've published other books and had other books published, but for whatever reason, I just never really put my poetry out there. And I wrote a poem one day and just sent it to my mentor because it was inspired by a lecture that she had given, a class that she had given in a private platform. And I sent it to her and she was like, "Are you ever going to publish a poetry book?" And when I heard her say that, I got this instant feeling of what that would feel like. It was a desire that I had forever. It was something I had thought for like over 3 decades. I had thought about this and thought about it. Even as a little kid, like 13, 14 years old, I was thinking about writing a poetry book. And the moment she said that, I just got like this visualization inside of me and I saw it as done. The next day, I designed the cover for the book, and in 10 days, I wrote my current newest published book, which is called Poetic Awakenings. And it's available on Amazon, and I'll pop the link up here as well as on my website. But I share this with you because I had thought about this book. I had written poetry for this book. I had taken action steps almost every single day writing other books. So I knew that I could do all of the parts, but it was that moment of feeling what it would feel like when I had that book in my hand that really like made all of those other things that I had been doing come together. Which brings me to another tool that I want you to use as you think about your way of visualizing, which is expanding your knowledge. So I knew that I wanted to write a book many, many years ago. My first book I wrote it in 2017 and published it at the end of 2017. And I knew that I wanted to write a book, but I had no idea how to do it. So I took a class on how to write and self publish a book. And as I did that, that's exactly what I did. I wrote and self-published my first book, which is called Live Consciously: Liberation in 3 Steps. And that knowledge, like expanding my knowledge about how to take the steps was very empowering. And it allowed me to continue to write, and it allowed me to continue to feel what it would feel like to finish that first book. And it actually led me to create a journal to go with that first book because I believe that journaling is one of the greatest therapeutic tools any individual can have because all it takes is a pencil and a piece of paper or a pen and a scrap piece of paper, and you can pour the thoughts out. And that's why I do use journaling as a way of visualizing besides just sitting and holding the mental image. Sometimes people have a hard time sitting still. This is why that kinesthetic movement of writing can be so powerful. The other thing is I want you to make time to consider your visualization. And I want to give you my notes on this because if you visualize something twice a day, you start your day with it and you end your day with it, what happens is you're going to start finding that you like to do that when you wake up in the morning and when you go to sleep at night. And those 2 moments are really sweet spots when it comes to the mental body, because this is when we are tapping into the subconscious brain. In the morning before we get started, we're still in that space of the subconscious brain. So if we keep planting those seeds of what it is we desire, then what happens is every evening, it's like when we go into that visualization again, we're watering those seeds. We're watering that garden. And as we do that, it's allowing it to grow throughout the day as we continue on with the rest of our life. So, again, consider or contemplate is my favorite word when it comes to your visualization. Maybe you do that first thing in the morning, and then maybe you do that in the evening. So, for myself, we'll go back to I was talking about really manifesting the ideal home for me and my little doggy to have a big backyard. And in the morning, I visualize while I'm still in bed, it's usually 5:36 in the morning. I visualize what it sounds like and what it feels like to walk out in the morning light in that yard and watch my little dog run around with my cup of tea in my hand with no one else around, right? Because right now I'm in an apartment building and there's lots of people around, but all that space and all that quiet, that just feels really nurturing to me, especially as a writer. I love that, right? And then to see my little dog just be happy and to have all of that space. And then I turn around in my mind and I walk back into the house and I appreciate all of the palette that I've created in my mind and the ease of how everything feels. And so what I do when I go to sleep at night is I revisit this, and that's when I'll start really thinking about more of the details. And I'll start constructing it in my mind of this is what I want the kitchen to look like. This is how I want the lighting to look. And this is why I want it to feel that way. When I drive up to the house, this is the feeling that I want. These things are all really valuable when it comes to contemplating because you can see how I'm dream weaving, but I'm also adding the emotion. And then every day, I do take action steps of reaching out to a realtor that I'm working with, as well as following up on a couple of real estate websites where I pay attention to what's being listed in areas that I've kind of got my eye on when my lease is coming to a close where I am right now. So that's how I'm using visualization right now on a daily basis. And the thing that I really want you to consider as well, if you are more of a physical person, you like things that are tangible, is creating a vision board. And vision boards are great because you can do them as simple as a piece of paper, like you see here, and you could cut up magazines or print things from the internet and put those things on here. If I were doing a vision board, I would start putting images of the house, of the finishes that I want, of the decor that I like, things in the yard that I like, an area of the map where I know that I want to live. And all of that could be that vision board. And then I would put it in a place where I could see it every day, multiple times throughout the day. I live in a small place. So for me, I would probably have it in a place that was by my desk where I work, where I'm typing and working on things, and where I watch my own classes that I attend, that sort of thing, so that I could just really, every time I look at it, just planting those seeds in my subconscious mind. And that's the thing that's really powerful about visualization is every time you spend your time dream weaving, you are sowing more seeds. And if you've ever grown a garden, you've ever planted seeds, it's never just plant one seed and hope that it goes. You drop quite a few seeds in there and you cover it up and you give it a pat and you give it some love and then you nurture it. And maybe one seed blossoms, maybe 40 seeds blossom. You just don't know. You have faith that all is coming in divine time. Your job is to simply show up and do the work, vibrating towards that which is what you desire. So ultimately, we want to talk about, to close it up for today, how does this raise our vibration, right? Because that's what this whole series is about. So the thing about raising your vibration with visualization, with dream weaving, is that you are cultivating joy. When you spend your time thinking about what it is you desire from your heart space, and you feel into that and you note how good that feels to you, you are stepping into the emotional frequency of joy. And if you've ever seen the emotional scale of feelings, I'll put a link to that under this video as well so you have visual reference. You will know that in that guilt and shame are the lowest in this emotional Richter scale. And then at the top of that chart is the vibrational frequency of joy. And when you have joy flowing through you, you are literally riding the wave of all creation. And so you are magnetizing everything to you in a way that is allowing it to flow through you and by proxy manifest in your reality. So I want you to continue your celebration list today. 10 more things that are going right for you in your world that are making you feel like you are on the best path to live the life of your dreams. And I want you to start spending 3 to 5 minutes a day visualizing. And the way you're going to do that is possibly writing it out, right, in a journal, adding to that as much detail as possible, and then feeling into that, adding the emotions of what it would feel like for you to have that in your life right now, like you're living it right now. What does that feel like to you? The other thing that I want you to do is spend time contemplating this, right? Maybe it's in the AM, maybe it's in the PM. Try this tool because honestly, I know that it works because I've used it to manifest so many things in my own life. And as you keep dropping these seeds, you're going to realize that you are weaving the ultimate dream of your reality. You are creating your own reality by planting the seeds of what it is you desire to grow. The other thing that I want you to do is as you're doing this, if you get inspired to take a class or to read up about something, or maybe you just want to check out that book that I mentioned, or both of the books that I mentioned, The Four Agreements and The Voice of Knowledge, what you will notice is that you're lighting up different parts of your brain. And as you light up different parts of your brain, you have different feelings. As you have different feelings, you take different actions. And this creates that alignment of mental, physical, and emotional. And as you line those things up, you become illuminated in ways that maybe you weren't before. And that's where the magic happens. So thank you again so much for joining me today. I'm looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow while we talk about another awesome tool for how to raise your vibration. In the meantime, if you haven't checked out how energy works, it's in the Create Your Own Reality playlist, as well as yesterday's video on mindset. And hopefully I will see you back here tomorrow. And remember to get on my email list in case you want any more of the goodness that I'm bringing to the table this month and beyond. All right. In the meantime, stay illuminated, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye, everybody.